I'm struggling in my belief of God.
Yeah.
Like, I'm finding some of these words hard to sing. What do I do with this? And we see this through this is in the Bible. It's in the Psalms.
Yeah.
Like, people struggling with their belief or view of God, asking the question, like, are you even real?
Yeah. So, welcome, guys. Just I wanted to frame today's Let's Talk podcast, not with this kitschy or nebulous question of what is worship. Like, I want to avoid that as much as possible. But rather, I want to kind of situate today's talk on worship in terms of like the identity of Suncoast and the trajectory of what we call like a post-Christian culture, and not necessarily trying to define worship, but trying to look into the future and to see what will worship look like, and how can you guys who are innovators, obviously very talented musicians and artists yourself.
Oh, stop.
And how we can push this forward. So like post-Christianity is this notion that Christianity no longer holds like a monopoly on certain language, vernacular, etc.
Mm-hmm.
So for you guys, how can worship, as we think progressively forward in terms of like theological understanding of God and the identity of church, what does worship look like in the next couple of years as we become more and more secularized, more and more post-Christian?
You said you had some heavy hitter questions, but I wasn't. You just didn't even warm us up a little bit.
No massage.
I mean, it's hard to guess because even from the 90s till now, worship has changed dramatically. And it's like almost every couple of years, the music side of things changes, and a lot of churches in the contemporary worship arena change with the style. So, where it will be in a couple of years, at least coming from the style-wise or music-wise part of worship, that could look completely different. I do think it's going to be more authentic than it has been in the past couple of years. What do you
mean by that? Like, what would be a manifestation of authenticity in a worship experience?
I think right now, especially with worship leaders and the pop-up fame of a lot of bigger bands and bigger churches and things like that, we're seeing a lot of repetition in what we sing about, and kind of the things that are sung but not understood. And now we're asking the questions, and we're putting people who lead worship and stuff, that we're putting them up and saying, hey, why do you sing what you sing? And that's kind of weeding out the people who really are diving into this, what is worship, and the people who are just following like a set of words to say or sing. And I think we're going to see more authentic writing. And that's exciting because we're already starting to see it from some of the artists we've been.
Yeah, Benjamin Hastings, Gungor. Who's that other guy?
I would even say Joel at Hillsong.
For sure.
Joel Houston.
Joel Houston. He writes for United and Hillsong's main church, and Young and Free kind of like writes all. Joel Houston's probably written like 80% of the worship music for Hillsong.
There's a lot of artists that we really look up to that you could see just growth in their writing style. I don't always agree with everything that all of the churches across the world are singing, because we all come from different communities. So not everything relates to what I'm going through, but I do see like a trend of like, it's kind of gotten past just the one word chorus, hallelujah, 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 which is great. But now we're starting to say, we're in the verses, we're starting to sing, why do we sing hallelujah? Why do we sing about this stuff?
Yeah.
And it's really supporting chorus, some of the verses and stuff that are coming out.
Right.
Yeah. And you guys do a good job of sort of evaluating the lyrics of songs and changing lyrics.
We have to kind of go through every song meticulously to make sure that what we're singing, it at least aligns for the things that we believe. And
Like, can you give us for instance of where someone who just comes to church, like what words pop out to you to say this is not relevant to the identity of our worship culture here?
I think the one that popped in my head most recently is we introduced a song called "Sure Thing" a couple weeks ago, and one of the lines, we didn't have to change much in that one, but one of the lines was, "The gates of hell don't stand a chance." You know, Suncoast is pretty vocal about the idea of hell and how much damage it's done to believers and to the world, really. I mean, there's a lot of people that just are, even if they believe there is a hell, they're like, I don't want to believe in a God that would send me there.
Right.
You know, because I didn't necessarily believe in him or do quote unquote the right things. Obviously we don't believe in this actual physical hell that you'll burn in an eternity forever.
Right.
So to kind of get some of that language out of there, you know, we just change it to darkness. So instead of the gates of hell don't stand a chance, we change it to darkness doesn't stand a chance.
Right.
You know, it's just little things like that. Because we'll find songs that are like 95% there. But it's to go back to your previous question, what I would love to see, and I think this is happening, I would love to see Christian music, especially contemplative, like worship music that we sing on the weekends, catch up to what contemporary music is. Like, we were in New York this past weekend, and we were flipping through the radio stations, and literally, like, as we're flipping through the radio stations, 2 seconds of a song playing, it was like, oh, that's a Christian song. Like, you can identify a Christian song really quickly. And I think part of it is the musicality of it, but part of it is the cheesier lyrics, you know, and sometimes the cheesy lyrics are fun, but
I think it even goes down to how they mix a song.
100%.
Because an artist, just a normal secular artist would look at both music and lyrics, depending on what they want to highlight. That's how their mix represents. With Christianity and Christian music, a lot of the times they're like, well, we want this lyric to be so heavily above the music to where the music almost just sounds like a backing track. And it doesn't kind of, you know, support the lyrics in some songs. We're starting to see more of that, where it's like music and lyrics are kind of supporting each other, and that's that weird, for me, that's that weird thing I hear when I'm flipping through stations, is like, oh, this sounds like very high end, all about the lyrics, which is great. I love the lyrics, but I'm like, oh man, that music could make those lyrics just dance, you know? Yeah.
Well, and I think what you were saying earlier too, the authenticity, I think, is coming through more and more with writing. Writing about your actual struggles. I mean, Benjamin Hastings does this really well. Like, Gable Price does this really well. Writing about the things of not just like struggles of day-to-day life. Like, I'm struggling to be a good Christian. No, that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about, like, I'm struggling in my belief of God. Like, I'm finding some of these words hard to sing. What do I do with this? And we see this through this is in the Bible. It's in the Psalms. Like, people struggling with their belief or view of God, asking the question, like, are you even real? And it's like Christian music kind of like that would be like shunned, you know, 20 years ago, if you like even like question the idea of God within Christian music. And now there is this authenticity that's coming through with these different artists that are kind of breaking this ground, in the sense that it's okay to have doubts. It's okay to ask questions. John Mark McMillan was the other guy. I was trying to remember his name. But these guys, they're really leading the charge in the sense of like, I'm writing contemplative music of my struggles in this belief and understanding of what or who God is. And I really love that. And so when you ask what is the future of Christian music, I really see it going that direction, and not necessarily having an answer, but also just continuing on that path of authenticity and honesty.
So for me personally, and I think this will resonate with you guys, I'm reluctant through my own experience and education. And I use the word loosely, deconstruction. Like, I don't even like that term. Like, I don't even want to identify as a Christian anymore. Like, I don't want to be called that. I'm reluctant to wear the title pastor, because that comes with so much like
Baggage.
what I call tacit assumptions and unarticulated presuppositions, right? And I think we've seen this shift over time. Like some pastors, it's no longer senior pastor now; it was lead pastor.
Right.
And now you look at someone at like Mosaic, like Erwin McManus, doesn't call himself pastor anymore. He's a cultural iconoclast or something like that, a futurist. Like we're dropping all of these Christian terms, and I think, like, to call you guys worship leaders, right? Like I even think that distinction is going to shift into terms of like we're just artists, right?
Yeah.
Like art is an event. So with that, like, are you guys reluctant to be identified as worship leaders? Is there a reticence on your part to be called that?
You know what? Actually, ever since I've worked here and worked with Ricardo, it was almost like this. Yeah, it was like a title that didn't have a lot of weight. We're like, well, what do we do?
We don't even call ourselves a worship team. Like we call ourselves like the music group or the band or whatever. Like
part of the creative team
or creative team. Yeah.
Because now it's like the people who put attention and focus and skill into even operating the cameras that are always going around the stage or trying to capture a certain angle, that's art, and they're doing the same thing that somebody playing a guitar and trying to do that with excellence and express something visually or sound. So I'm like, yeah, I totally agree with that. We are artists, and I love that image because I remember talking to Brett about, I think it was the 5 pillars of I guess influence, and the church used to have such a huge they were like huge into the arts, and they were leading in the world for a long time. And I feel like now the church isn't that leading idea of art and beauty. It's kind of like we're following the trails of art and
like the church directed culture.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily that way anymore. And you know what? I think that could be a good thing as well.
Yeah.
But I think there is definitely a space for the church to do that again.
Yeah.
And I think we are seeing that. But yeah, no, I mean, I definitely don't go around telling people I'm a worship leader.
Yeah. And it's funny, like you see people in public, and like I told the story in staff, like one of the guys from church saw me in Walmart and was like, Pastor Troy. And I'm like, there's an uneasiness about that, right? Because of the cultural connotations.
Not that you're ashamed of your beliefs. It's literally just the connotation of I don't want to be lumped into this category of person.
Yeah. I don't want to be painted with the same brush as like a prosperity gospel pastor or whatever. And so you said a word, Chase, that I love. And I guess the direction of this next question is centered on not like a teleology or a purpose or a design, but the beauty of the experience of the music, right? And I use the word worship again loosely. So how much emphasis do you guys place on creating an experience at our gathering that's not rooted in just emotionalism? Because let's face it, man, emotions, most of us make decisions that are emotional in base, right? How do you guys envision the incorporation or the melding of this idea of knowing music captures an essence of our emotional side, but also bringing some depth and breadth to the articulation of the lyrics that we're actually professing. We're not just singing; we're actually professing things when we sing. Right. We're articulating the core values of our existence. How do you guys see that being? How would you define that in terms of how is that beautiful to you? Why do you guys show up every Sunday? Is it just the emotion of it, or what? Is there something deeper than just the existential experience of people lifting their hands or crying when they hear certain songs? Because, dude, I'm bawling every Sunday. My hands are lifted every Sunday, but it's not just with the expression of the guitars and the notes and the rhythm and the cadence. It is this heightened sense of awareness that I'm a part of something big that is moving. So what is it for you guys?
I think you nailed it, what you just said right there. you want to do those like anthem-y emotional songs all the time, right? But I don't necessarily think it's about that. Like emotional experiences obviously like further our almost like buy-in to whatever it is we're doing. Like if I feel like, oh my gosh, I had this like amazing emotional experience. I'll relate it to when you guys talk and do, you guys will lay out all these like incredible points, right? That change your paradigm through your talk, but you'll tell an emotional story at the end. And that's what people remember. They link these memories to emotion. So it is, I think it's both. Like you want to have those emotional experiences, and you can't force people to have emotional experiences. That's what that has to be done on their own.
Yeah.
Like the same song that's moving you, the guy three rows behind you is looking on his phone, right? And not really paying attention. So it's like it's where you are in that space. If the song is connecting with you, and a million other things too, but there is, I think, a place for contemplation, and so there isn't this like always outward emotion that you can visually see, because I will see people in the audience that I think are from the outside they look like they're having a miserable time, and that same person will come to us later and be like, I was so moved by that service. So I want to be very clear, like there isn't like this physical expression that has to be had for you to have an emotional experience. But I think one of the amazing things about like what gets me on stage every weekend is not just because of the fact that we sing these songs that have inspired me, but you look out into the audience and you see these people, whether it's a song that Hillsong wrote or a song that we wrote, when they're singing these words and we're all singing together. And like that to me is like, we say we're Suncoast Community Church and we go by our middle name. Like that community experience, that oneness that happens when we're all singing the same thing and contemplating on these words together, that is a miracle in itself. And that is what inspires me. And that's why I cry like every freaking weekend on stage, because it's so like, until you've experienced that, until you've been there on that stage and you see the community that of so many people that you love singing and getting emotional and really believing with every fiber of their being the words that are being said, gosh, that's like magical. And that's what gets me on stage.
It's good.
You're up.
Oh man, I mean, that was it in a nutshell. But when you first asked the question, I had to go back to where I first started taking a look at worship music. You know, because me and a few of my friends that also have played with us on stage, Ryan Parker being one, who plays drums, and we grew up really loving rock music, and for a little while we were playing like hardcore rock, so it was like screaming and it was very aggressive. But in that musical environment, it was all about competition. We would, if we got a show, you know, we would show up and it's like immediately every other band and every other musician is on the other side. Like we have to do better than you, you know? So it was, my anxiety in that environment was like, it was less about music. It was more about a competition. Can you be better than this person? Which is good as a musician. Like you want to do great. Yeah, you want drive. But I remember I'm like, is this what I want to live my life off of? This anxiety of always walking into an environment against somebody else. And I remember when a church asked us to play, they lost their worship band. They're like, you guys are a band. You're our new worship band. We're like, we learned one worship song and played it every single week, you know, because it's like, we didn't have a repertoire of worship songs. And, but I remember the first time we played, it was kind of like, the first time we played at an event where there was other bands, it wasn't this, you walk in there and you're against them. It was mainly about just that moment, that experience, and that feeling, and everybody was on the same team. That for me, it was huge. So why I continue to get on the stage is knowing when I get on the stage, it's we're all on the same team. We all want this same thing, and it is that contemplative emotion. But it could be you've walked into the auditorium and you're full of joy, or you could be walking in and you're super sad because something heavy just happened. And usually our set lists kind of, you can find whatever you're dealing with, you can kind of find a place to express what you're going through. And, we'll go out into the grand hall and, we'll hear, I was going through this, and that one song really spoke. And so it's like, it's almost like what we do is obviously, it's working in ways that we don't know when we're playing it.
Because those are the people that are coming up to us. We don't know every single story, you know?
But it's those comments afterwards that I'm like, oh, okay, because we'll practice before the service, and we'll do a couple services. And so singing a song 3 or 4 times in a day, by the 4th time, it can get a little, dull. If it was just a normal song, you were just at home and you played it 3 or 4 times, you'd be like, okay, I want to listen to something else. But going there and then seeing the impact that a song does, that like kind of gives you that boost. Like, oh, this is why. There's something bigger going on.
Right. No, I definitely, you when you look out in the audience and you can see someone being moved, and whether you know their story or not. I mean, there was one time I saw a buddy of mine out in the audience, and he was just going through some really rough stuff in life. And we were singing a song. I can't remember what it was, but he's just bawling. And that made me cry, because I'm just like, man, like if he's in such a dark place and he can sing these words of encouragement and joy, it's just like it overtakes you, you know? And I think like growing up, I had a very different view of like what worship is. And to me, worship was like this thing that God required. Like, you needed to praise God for all his glory. Like he requires you to worship him. So that's what I viewed worship as. Like I needed to come in, do this check of like, I worship God today, and then the pastor would get on stage and be like, you need to worship God 24/7, 365. I'm like, well, I can't just walk around singing songs. And it was like a very different like view. And then when they would tell us like, oh, heaven is going to be us just worshiping God all day, every day for eternity. And I'm just like, are we going to take breaks? Like, are we going to get to eat some food? Like, are we going to get to do other things other than just like singing these songs? That was like my view of worship. And it wasn't until I came to Suncoast that I realized, like, as I was going through my own deconstruction and reconstruction of like, no, like what this specific type, like the music that we do, that we call worship, is about stepping out of your individual situation and coming together as a community. Because there is like, we don't have creeds here, but like our worship songs are like creeds. It's the same exact thing. We're singing these songs in unison together and believing and being inspired by the words of these songs. And I think there's something really magical about that. So I don't think this thing that we do on a weekend is like required by God. I think it's almost like this like makes him happy.
That's right.
It's just like, this is such a good thing.
It's like the old theological premise of we were made to worship. Like God created us. Like God lacks something. Like he needs us to worship because he has like some sort of insecurity. But you use the word there, dude, like a very hot. So for me, I don't like the word deconstruction. The way I describe my journey is I call it a disenchantment. Like it's a disenchantment. And when we think of enchantment, you use the word magic, right? Like this idea of magic. And instead of using reconstruction, I say I'm re-enchanted. And I think with the idea of like me being reluctant to use the word Christian to identify with, or pastor as some sort of title, the same thing, like when I see people lift their hands, or when I see people have that space to express outwardly what's going on inwardly. Like when you guys do Homeward, dude, I bawl every time because there's that line that says, but what if where you want me is exactly where I am? Because like, I'm going to just be honest. Like I struggle with being in Florida, being away from my kids. But when you sing that freaking song, dude, it's like this ignite. I'm ignited and reminded of I'm here just to set people free from bad theology, not just like addiction or whatever, but from bad freaking theology. And when people lift their hand, there's this presupposition that, oh, that's charismatic.
Exactly, yeah.
And I go, no. They may be onto something. So how do you think the mystical realm, like the idea of that when I lift my hands, when I allow space for an encounter with the transcendental being, God, whatever term you want to use. Like, why is that important? Why do you think it's important for people to be open to that experience of something that is mystical, that is mysterious? And why should the worship arts unhinge itself to elements of certainty and absolutism? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
So, like, explain that to me, man. Like, how is worship a mystical experience, but not hitched to we're certain about this, we are absolute about this belief?
Oh man, I guess there's a couple different ways I can go with that, but for me, it goes back to like the things that I can't really see, but I could see the effect of. But you brought up like raising your hand and those physical acts. You know, those I always battled with that. You know, I always being on stage, I always wanted people to lift their hands because it seems like we're communicating.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not just in my own little bubble, you know, but it's like this.
It's like getting an amen when you're preaching.
Exactly.
Or whatever, you know?
Exactly.
It's like, are you guys in the same spot I'm at, or should I just keep doing this? You know, because and sometimes when it's just a bunch of still bodies out there, it makes me feel like, okay, you know, is this effective? You know, that was when I first got into it. But I remember, you know, having those Sundays where I'm out and I'm with the whole church, and that intuition of like, I've done this a billion times, but why is there this insecurity of raising my hands, you know, doing something that doesn't feel normal? I don't walk outside and lift my hands up when, you know, I should be living, you know, with this let go of ego or whatever. But I think that's what it is. It's vulnerability and doing something that says, I'm so compelled to do something outside of myself, outside of the norm, because I'm almost reaching for something greater than myself. And so going to that mystic idea, like all day long, that's where my mind is thinking. It's like some like creative poet, you know, poem or a poetic way to say something, and that's not always clarity. You know, that's why I love the fact that when we write songs, it goes to the pastors that have studied a lot of the Bible, a lot of world culture and religion, and to where I could be in the clouds with how to say something, but is it clear enough to be effective in the sense of I'm not just reading some weird story, you know? But I don't know if you.
I mean, I think I've told you this. I grew up AG.
Yeah.
So Assemblies of God. So it's very like Pentecostal, very charismatic. And, you know, I really loved worship music in those environments. But there was always like an insecurity that came with that as well, because, you know, they, Pentecostals, charismatic people like believe in like this idea of the gifts of the Spirit, you know, whether that be prophecy or speaking in tongues or being, you know, you remember those Benny Hinn crusades where he'd wave his hand and people just fall down,
slain in the Spirit.
Slain in the Spirit. And I grew up with that my whole life, you know, just seeing that every Sunday, every Wednesday night, every Sunday night church, you know, as that was my experience and my relationship with worship. And as I was getting older and to my teen years and later on, I started to question, like, why am I not, like, I'm like forcing speaking in tongues. Why am I not getting slain in the Spirit? And I remember these evangelists coming in and like trying to push me down. And I'm like, I'm not like, I want to, but I don't want it to be like a fake thing. And so in my re-enchantment, I really like that, by the way, in my like disenchantment and re-enchantment, like that was one of those things that, well, it's like, well, we're going to leave all that behind because it's all hoopla. Yeah. And now in my re-enchantment, I don't believe that. I think there is something mystical about music, just music, not necessarily worship music. I went to a Coldplay concert a few years ago, and one of my knee-jerk things of a song that really moved me was to raise my hands, even though it's not a Christian song about God. You know, there's like, I did a transition about this, I think, at Encore last time. You know, this act of raising your hand is a physical expression of an inward change. And so not to say that you're not changing unless you lift your hands by any means, but there comes a point where it just like bubbles up inside me, and all I want to do is this. And Mike D, he's the lead singer of 10th Avenue North. He made this great analogy of like, you know, this is an act of surrender, but this is also a child that's holding its arms out to like be picked up by its father. You know, like this, I want you, I trust you, I want to be in your arms. And so like that was such a beautiful like picture that he painted with this idea. But I do believe it, like the charismatics and the mystics really they have tapped into something, because there's something magical and amazing that happens in those music services that is like something more than just us singing a couple of songs together. Like there's like this oneness and this spirit that moves through the audience, that especially when it's like you just know that room is feeling it, and you can read the emotions off of different people, and you just know like man, this is what God is like. This is the connectivity and the glue of all of us like experiencing this one thing together.
That's good, man. I like that. So this is a two-part question. So obviously both of you, the first one's it's gonna be easy. The second one may be a little bit tougher question.
I'll take the first one.
So as artists, the way I would describe your job description, if I were to write like a job description for you, is as artists who create space for the opportunity of re-enchantment. Where have you seen that space? Like give me a time as an artist who is engaging a community to re-enchant themselves with the God of the cosmos, right? Like when have you seen that? Like when you walked off stage and you were like, it happened for you, like as someone who is leading that. When's the time where your own re-enchantment fell into your lap in leading others toward that space?
I have a couple. Do you have any you want to? It's not a recent. It's just some key points in my musical.
Tell us what happened. Like what happened? Like what was the experience?
The first one actually was when we were writing an album, and Darkness was one where it was just kind of like we need to write a song. We were going through a lot as a church, and I remember pulling. It was almost like literally just talking to every single person in the office. Every single person in the office, and saying, "Oh, what do you think about this? What do you think about this?" And working with Brett, and the whole song was just based off of a sermon title, even that inspired. You know, it was back when we had a guy preaching one of the Kevin. One of the titles. It was God Dwells in the Darkness. And I remember that seemed so backwards to me. And I'm like, I thought we were running away from that. I thought we don't want to be in that. No. And but that started a journey for me where I was like, that was that what would you guys, de-enchantment? Disenchantment. Yeah. That was one of the starts for mine, because immediately God became this thing that was in a box that I can write 100 songs about. Because everybody uses the same words to describe them. We already know these words, and this idea of God, it's like we put them in a box, and it's like, oh, you want to make a hit? Here's what you say, and involve water or an ocean, and you're set.
Nature, and just a lot of nature analogies.
The false, or that the fakeness, I guess, of that. It just didn't seem genuine to me, and it was hard. And so when I heard that title, that was the first time I had that God became like huge. And I'm thinking,
boom.
And it was one of those things like even though I feel like I know so much less than I did a day ago, I feel like this is the most I've ever known. And I remember that. I remember sending Ricardo a video of it, or a audio of it.
Yeah, it was just an audio recording.
Just an acoustic in the back office. You could hear the AC going. But I remember that moment right there was like, that was my favorite take of that song, was a recording that I sent to Ricardo, because it had this big question mark, because I was so excited, but I was like, I don't know what this is. But then when we played it live, like every time we've played it, it's always been a little different, but there's some weight to it.
Yeah.
And I don't know. There's just some songs that we even sing. Pursue All I Need Is You was one of them that we did an arrangement that had, it was like an acoustic stripped down. The fact that we were so like, we had the full band and then it would strip down to just something acoustic. It almost threw me off, and it made you lean in because you weren't used to it. And it's those moments, I guess, of just tapping into different ways to approach a song.
Yeah.
And when you see somebody like tearing up because, oh man, that's real. You know, and that's what we try to write out of, is something real. When it's real, those are the moments where I'm like, whoa. Whoa. It gives you those chills because it's just not somebody saying, you know, something that they've repeated over and over again that doesn't have weight, but it's something that they're going through. And if we're singing what we're going through, then that moves me.
See, that's cool, dude. Like we use the word awful to describe things we dislike, but to be in awe, to be full of awe. Like you saw the awfulness of God in that sort of seemingly contradictory moment of, wait, he's bigger than this box.
Yeah.
So
We need to write that down. That's a song lyric right there.
Yeah.
Awful.
The awfulness.
I'm full of awe.
So let me give you the other side of the question, because I think you nailed like the essence of what I was hoping to get.
Okay.
Where do you struggle in doubt, or as a person whose main objective is to create this space of possible even disenchantment with ideas and re-enchantment with new possibilities? Like, where do you struggle in that, man?
I mean, I think one of the things the reason I rewrite lyrics a lot is so that I don't struggle with the things that I'm singing. I want to be authentic, and I want to like actually believe the words that I'm singing.
Yeah.
And I struggle every day, right?
Yeah.
Like there are things that happen that make you question, like God, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Like this doesn't seem right.
Right.
And I think that's why I'm thankful for Suncoast, because it is a place that you can be that, and you can ask those questions. And Benjamin Hastings has this really great song that's like, it's all about his doubt. And I want to sing it at church really, really bad. I think we will here soon. It's not a worship song, like in that sense of like, you know, raise your hands to it. It's a very contemplative song. But one of the honest lyrics in there is like, are you finding these words kind of hard to believe?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes. But in the most authentic, like in my most authentic self, like I do believe a lot of the lyrics that we sing, because I've been in, like a lot of those lyrics are places I've been. Like we sing a song called Here Again that for the first time I heard it, I started bawling. I was in a rough place in my life when that song came out. And I remember listening to that album on a run, and Here Again came on. And man, like those lyrics got me. And for the first like 4 or 5 times singing it, I couldn't sing that song without crying, because it's like that song spoke to me so much in that moment of where I was. It's kind of like Homeward for You.
Yeah.
Like that's where I was in that moment. And like it's this questioning of like, you know, it's like almost like you're begging like God, like, can you please meet me here again in that song? It's like I know I've felt your presence. I know you've been here with me, but I can't feel it. And then the bridge comes in and it's like, but not for a moment have you forsaken me.
Yeah.
You've always been there.
Yep.
And like that for me, like in that darkness, I felt alone. I felt like you're a screw up. You're a piece of crap. Like, why would you do this? And then that song came on. And it's like, no. God is there. And it's not like this. Yes, there's this like mystical spiritual thing, but it's like when my friend would call me and be like, hey man, I want to check in on you. And I talked to him for an hour. Yeah. Or he, you know, somebody would just text me, I love you. Like that's God right there. Like that connectivity. And that's God's love showing not just through him, but through other people. Yeah. So I think I answered your question.
Yeah, I know. It's beautiful, dude. Beautiful.
Prince of Peace was mine.
Yeah, that was a good one.
And I'm so glad, because there was a period of time where I was singing music on Saturday nights, and Ricardo was singing music on Sunday. But because we had a few different people, and I was leading at another church, that I'd get the songs that Ricardo sings on Sunday. And when I started coming on full time, now we sing together. I'm so glad that you sing Prince of Peace more often than I do, because that song makes me cry every time.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember the period of time when I couldn't even make it through the song without it, without crying. You know, it was when my dad passed away. That was the one song. The opening line is, "My heart's a storm, clouds
raging deep within."
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember it's like that first line where I'm just like, that is what I'm going through.
Yeah.
But I have this wired this thing that you have to hold it together up there. You know, you got to make it through the song. But it's those moments where it's like be those lyrics.
Yeah.
Right.
Live those lyrics,
Yeah,
because if you try to hold all that back, then it's just like, man, it's just a song.
Yeah.
But when you become those lyrics,
Dude.
it becomes more than that song. And I think those are the weeks where people come off and they're like, I don't know what it was, but it was just the fact that we surrendered to the song.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have those lyrics correct, because you don't want to surrender to a song and it not be something that is you, or that you can put your whole thing into. So I love that you comb through them and make sure that we're not attaching ourselves to false lyrics, I guess.
Right.
I wouldn't call myself an artist, but I think as a communicator, when I share a story, there's something about, because unless you're singing Darkness, which is something you guys wrote, which is one of my favorite songs because of the non-dualistic aspect of the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing certain in that song.
Right.
And it just creates space for the mystery. I find beauty in mystery, not
There's no
certainty.
solve. There's no solve to that
that's it.
song.
Yeah.
So in the same way, like when I tell the story about my grandfather suffering with Alzheimer's, like I'll have it written on paper, but it's when that memory rushes back of seeing his face. I can almost smell him in his room. It's impossible for me not to be moved. And it's that I'm not faking my cry.
Right.
I am the most vulnerable and the most authentic. And I'm like, and here is where God met me.
Right.
And use whatever term you want. Or if I tell a story about Luther and how this is how the love of God works. It doesn't work by just simply healing me of a sickness that I don't want in my life. It meets me in the place of, damn it, I need someone to believe in me.
Right.
I need someone to truly believe. And what'll be cool, like this Sunday, man, I have a story about a student in my academic life who I'm going to save it for then.
Yeah.
But this notion, man, so there's this word. I love all sorts of theology. So there's this one theology. It's called Apophatic Theology. And what it means is this, is that the only things we could say about God are the things that God is not. Right?
Yeah.
And it goes back to like the lyrics of Darkness, right? It's in the unknown where I've never known so much, right? And one of the old fathers, the Latin fathers, Tertullian, said something like God exists within a luminous darkness, something like that. Or like the choir of heaven sings in silence, because silence is how God is to be understood, right? So for me, I view that apophatic theology as this depth of what is revealed about God is actually hidden. So what do you guys think about that? Like that the only thing we can reveal about the nature, the essence of God is still going to remain hidden from human reason, the limitation of our language. Like, does that like challenge you, or does that kind of like...
It excites me, honestly.
Yeah.
The fact that we don't have them figured out, the fact that there is this draw to continue to search. And I think that's that's the most beautiful thing about God is one, the challenge to seek out truth. I mean, that's a challenge that we read about in the Bible. Yeah, seek it out. I'm the real deal,
But truth in the way that you talk about truth, or that Brett or Larry talks about truth, that it's not this. There's not a finality to it.
Yeah,
it's a constant, like what you say, an uncovering,
disclosing,
discovering. It's like this journey that will never really solve, like a problem that will never solve.
It's to me, it's like truth is a living thing. And that living thing grows, and we don't always understand when we're in this part of time that it's going to be the same image that we see when we're longer on life. I mean, God just continues this image of this greater thing continues to grow as we continue to get closer.
Yeah.
So it's like this weird thing of getting close. You know,
Yeah.
But then also feeling like, oh man, I even got like more to go. There's more to discover.
That's a beautiful way to put it. I had one of my philosophy of science professors tell me, like, the closer you get to something, to discovering truth, the further away it almost seems.
Yeah.
Like if you take the number 1 and continuously divide it by half, it's infinite. But yet 1 seems to be the most insignificant number, right? And for us, like, we're limited by our language, we're limited by our reason, even our emotional ability is almost instability at times. And so I guess what I'm trying to get at is you guys do an amazing job at reinforcing the faith of those who participate, but also challenging, right? Challenging. Like, there's a great German word. It's called Auseinandersetzung, right? It means it's this challenging, this bringing forth a challenge to, now think about this, right?
Yeah.
Now consider this. Like, yeah, Jesus is awesome, right? He is the ideal, right? But here, right? So in closing, I guess the last question I want to ask you guys, and it's sort of a personal, again, more like intersubjectivity question. I don't know. I'm trying to frame in my mind how to ask this question. What's going to drive you guys to push this envelope of mystery and re-enchantment? Like, is it writing original stuff? Is it changing lyrics? Is it pushing the crowd to in oneness engage, right? Because I'm all about user experience. You know, I don't want to call like our community, customer service oriented, but like I love going to Oak and Stone and getting a beer there because it's user friendly. Like I scan and I get to pour my beer, right? Like, how does that translate into? Again, I don't want to call it church because church isn't even on our sign out there. It's community. Yeah. How does that play into what you guys foresee Suncoast worship space coming into? Like, how can you guys, along with us as communicators, what would be like this dream, this ideal for you guys to say, this is how we create this cohesive interface, engagement, interaction? Like, are there ways you guys see other than someone sitting and soaking, maybe having an experience, but what does that look like for you guys?
I think for me, it's at least continuing the journey, right? And it's nice now because there for a while we were writing so many Origin songs because we couldn't find anything. And now it's like at least we're finding other artists that are going through the same like journey, or at least close to like what we're going through. And I think there is this shift, but I think continuing on with, we have a song that we're about to work on now that I'm really excited about because I think it speaks to the heart of the church. And I think, there's not a better feeling of like writing a song from your heart. And songwriting is insanely difficult. Yeah. It is insanely difficult to write a song and then make it a good song. Yep. So it's like, when you're looking out in the crowd, and I know you've experienced this with Darkness and songs that I've written as well, like you look out in the crowd and there's something special about like people singing the lyrics that you were inspired to write. Yeah. Like it's a really cool feeling. So like keeping, like even Lee, our lead player, like texted us a couple weeks back, like we need to write music again. Yeah. It's like, I miss writing music with you guys. And we want to start writing music again. But I think staying authentic in our journey and like where we are and moving and progressing forward in that, and like bringing the community together with us is like, and really trying to just like, it's not only about like, oh, we have to have like correct theology within our music, like, but like also inspiring people is amazing. And like there for so long, Christian music, worship music was so degrading to the person that was singing it. It literally has lyrics of like, I'm a piece of crap, and I'm only good because of you. Like, if your kid came to you every single day and was like, Dad, I'm a piece of crap. Thank you for loving me. You'd be like,
why do you think that?
Why are you thinking that way? That's so unhealthy for you. And you would encourage him, like, and say, no, like, baby, I love you. You're amazing. You've got such a good heart. Like, that's how I feel like God is with us when we are sitting there saying, like, I'm trash, I'm broken, I'm all these things, and the only reason I'm good is because of you. And it's like, that's why we started the song Fountain. Like, Fountain is like one of those like few songs in worship music that is not like that. It like literally has the lines like, I am good because you say I'm good. I am worthy because you say I'm worthy. Like, it's like a positive thing. And there's plenty of songs that we do that now with. But so it's just not about like contemplation, but also a reminder of like, yes, we mess up, but we're also not a giant group of piece of crap people. Like,
it's funny you say that, man, because when I preached a couple of weeks ago, I said one of my points was, you don't have to hate your life to love God.
Exactly.
And I've never heard so many amens from the Suncoast community as I did at that moment. And it was like a light bulb went off. Like,
they needed
he's right. Like, you don't have to hate your life to love.
That's what's been ingrained into us. You know, if you grew up in a evangelical Christianity, that is the thing. That you're supposed to believe.
That's right on, man.
I think, and I also think it's a both and, or it's a both, because we're gonna find songs that just inspire us. And why hold that from just because we didn't write it?
That's right. Good.
And I think that's the key point: is does it speak to our church? You know, does it speak to who we are as a community? Then this is something they need to hear. Doesn't mean every song that gets thrown at us or suggested to us we're going to look at and be like, well, it's not matching up. But I mean, when you think about it, it's like we sing these songs every single week. And they're the same songs. And so if you don't add in new ones, it's like hearing the same sermon every single week. Well, that sermon better be really good. You know?
That's right.
So, I mean, if you're going to hear it, because it's that reminder each week of something that is important. I am good. If I'm going to get reminded of something every single week, it needs to have some weight to it. You know, it needs to be that wake up, or that just, you know, makes me happy. There's some songs, we'll even cover songs that aren't even Christian songs, because they have such a good message behind it, or it has this feeling of like, I'm just going to take this in and, you know, read these lyrics and see how it applies to my life. Is it good? Is it pushing me forward?
That's good, man.
Yeah, because like even like we do a song called Awestruck Revival by Gable Price and Friends, and that's like one of my favorite songs to play because it's just a fun song. And it's like, it has like, it's the writer Gable Price talks, the lyrics are literally like, I want to be enchanted again by like that first time that I discovered you in this relationship and God. Like, I just want that that awe again. And that's what the whole heart of the song is, like, just give me that, like that awestruck revival. And but it's outside of like the lyrical value of the song, the musicality is really fun. And people just like, you could tell just people have fun, like, listening to it, you know, and like that's awesome, that's okay too. Like,
that's cool.
Not that we're like in the business of entertaining, but it's okay to be entertained. That's right. You know, it's okay to let loose and have fun. Like, those are things that they seem to be like, oh, you're not allowed to do that in church. It's the same, like, you're not allowed to have beer on a church property. Why?
Why not?
You're having beer at home. Why are you not allowed to be a little bit entertained? And hopefully it inspires you to loosen up and to engage with the music a little bit more. But I back to your other question too. When we had Encore this past, I think it was October, November, in there somewhere. Man, like, as far as like a music worship service, like that was so powerful.
Yeah.
There was like this connectivity that everybody, like nobody wanted it to end.
Yeah.
It was just, it was so cool. And like that, I remember walking off stage, like just my voice is gone.
Yeah.
Like we sing a lot of songs that are at the top of my register, and
we 2 or 3 times. 'Cause
Yeah.
we're practicing before that.
Oh,
So.
geez. Yeah.
so it's like when you're done giving like you literally you give everything that you have vocally and physically, but you're just smiling ear to ear because it was just such a like magical, enchanting service.
That's a cool thing, man. Like I always look at entertainment from a subjective point of view. And the way I try to rationalize that is I don't say entertainment. I say with the experience, it's an inner attainment. Like the entertainment should create an inner attainment. Like I'm gaining something from this, you know?
Yeah.
And so here's, promise, last question, and we can close it out. So if you Google something like post-Christian worship, nothing
comes up.
Nothing. You get nothing.
Yeah.
You get nothing. And for me, that's exciting. That's exciting. That's like Mars, dude. You know, live from Mars. How much do you guys feel this, like being in Mars, like an uninhabited space of we can create literally, not like civilization, but like community within this mysterious land that's uncharted, like literally like being trailblazers toward a new type of expression of worship within a new Christianity. Like how do you guys feel that way? Do you guys like, you're reticent, like reluctant?
No, I'm ready.
Yeah,
but
definitely.
I do think if you're exploring something new, you got to have a compass. And I think that's one of the reasons we meet a lot and we talk about music, because we want to know, okay, at least if we're going this way, we got to know which way is north and which way is backwards. You know? And I'm really excited about that idea of, man, people want to write. Our band is eager to write music because to them it's how they can communicate who they are, who they want to be, and a way to communicate with our community to say, hey guys, are we alone? Are we together? And that's fun. I mean, I'm excited to see where it can go. And the fact that our whole band loves all different types of music. So what you get on a weekend is a collective of, I mean, it's a wide range of music that our band listens to, and it all kind of comes together and makes something unique. A lot of our songs is not the typical, the songs we write are not the typical songs that are played in churches stylistically. And that's challenged us. And I know it's made an impact on the church, because I'm like, man, I don't know how this is going to land. And then we walk out and people are humming it. Or it's playing. I'm like,
cool.
like, whoa. It does feel like we're kind of diving into some new territory stylistically.
Yeah. No, I mean, my hope is to continue onto that journey, and I'm encouraged by the fact that we're not alone.
Yeah.
Like it is Mars, but we got a lot of artists that are right there with us that are ahead of us. They're out there getting their albums, published, and it's amazing to see. It's really inspiring. I think I showed you that that one girl, like I'm blanking on her name, but she's a Christian artist and she's gay.
Oh yeah, you showed me her
music. She was like number one
on the Christian charts. So when I see things like that, I'm just like, that's so encouraging. And if you listen to her music, it is a lot of that, like that shedding of bad theology, but also questioning of God. Yeah. Like, what are you? Who are you? Why do I feel alone sometimes and I don't feel your presence? Like, are you even there? Yeah. Like, I think those are all really important questions, and that's what unifies us as humans, is like we all have our doubts about certain things, and some people don't even want to pay attention to those doubts. They'd rather just close their eyes. Like, they don't want to look in the telescope and see that the earth is not the center of the universe. Like they'd rather just be blind. Yeah. So we're willing to be honest with our journey, and in a very, it's not hard to do that here. Yeah. I remember when we were actually interviewing for the job that you ultimately got, different teaching pastors, and I met this guy. I cannot remember his name. I'm blanking on names today, but he was out of Texas as well. And he was serving at a church, and the church would not allow him to have the official title of pastor because he was gay. And so he was just like hearing about Suncoast and just like, man, like, I would love to be a part of your community. And I'm just like, I would love for you to be a part of our community as well. You know, I'm sorry that you have to feel like you have to hide this aspect of who you are.
Yeah.
Because like there are people that with every fiber of their being do not want to be gay because of their position, but they are.
Yep.
It's just who they are. And to know like, okay, we're on this journey together of acceptance. So it is easier for us to have those questions and write those songs here at Suncoast than it is for a lot of other people that are going through, whether it be they're struggling because they're gay, or they're struggling because their theology may be different than the church that they're working at, but they can't be honest with that because then they'll lose their job, and they have a family at home, and they'll lose their livelihood. And what church are you going to go to?
Right. That's right.
You know, because this is such a unicorn of a situation. But I think one of the things that when you sing a song, when you write a song about these things, it's different than a sermon.
Yeah.
It's different than writing like the words down.
Yeah.
You have a little bit more flexibility in these ideas when you're singing a song.
Yeah.
Because you'll listen to a song sometimes you have no idea what the song is about.
That's right. That's right. That's
You're
right.
like, I really like this song. Okay, what's the song about? No idea.
I don't know. I interpret it this way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I think that music has this way of allowing us to even be freer than what you do. Because people will write down what you say.
That's right.
You know, and then it'll be printed out and it's in black and white, you know. So
you're giving me a bunch of cool ideas, like what you said. Like either we're going to express a blind faith, or we're going to express a brave faith, and that's what I love about Suncoast. So Encore's coming up.
Yeah,
I want to plug it because
I'm
going to promote this podcast on worship. I think people need to hear what we've discussed. What would you say? What is it going to be about? When is it? What's it going to be about? Why should someone who has experienced a type of disenchantment, but is like, you know, atheists throughout history, philosophers, most philosophers who had some sort of religious allegiance or identification, when they lost their faith, it was very painful for them.
Sure.
And they had intellectual reasons, right? Whatever. Why would Encore be a good runway into a re-enchantment? Like what can we experience there in terms of like the environment, the ethos?
So it's March 2nd. So it's the first Wednesday of March at 7. And I think kind of to throw it back to what we talked about earlier, you know, like music has a way of moving you. And I challenge anyone to not be moved by what happens at an encore. Like whether you believe in God or not, there are atheists that come to our church and they're moved by the music and they love the community. Like that, if that doesn't speak to what we're doing, I don't know what else does. Like people that literally don't believe in the God that we're talking about, or this person that we call Jesus, they don't believe it, but they love this place so much because they feel accepted and there's something special about it.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with Encore. There's something so special that happens in that service. That's why people beg for it, you know, and we love doing it. Like we got tired because we were doing them once a month on top of the 4 services that we already do. And it was getting exhausting, but like, there's something that's magical that happens, and we get to let loose, and it's not the morning, it's night. So some of us have a little bit more energy, and I feel like the crowd has a little bit more energy, and it's the people that are there for the music. There's no speaking. They're there for the music.
Yeah.
And it's not like we have a second one following the first one. Like it's not like 2 encores in one day. So
we're going to give it our all.
Yeah.
Well, it literally is. It's something unique that each one's different, and it's an experience that makes itself in a sense as well. Like we can prep all we want, but songs, you know, that if we're just playing a song in practice, it's so much different than when people walk through the doors and are sitting there and are a part of that song. Then it's kind of like, I don't know what happens. One encore, I grabbed a drum and ran around because everybody was just running around.
Let's go.
And it's like there's just a sense like leaving the last one. Somebody the kids from the youth group. Where, they were doing like a trail around, you know, which that's all I looked at the whole time. So I was a little distracted on my moment, but I was also inspired because I'm like, they were grabbing a hold of something you can't really see. You have to experience.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And I think for me, that's what I think Encore represents. So Wednesday, March 2nd, 7 p.m. here on the Suncoast campus.
Yes, sir.
8000 Hawkins Road.
Yeah.
And what I hope is that space for the music, for people who may show up who've been disenchanted, the way it goes back to my friend, that the door to God may be closed, but Encore could be a way that the door is unlocked, right? To the possibility of that.
Yeah.
Awesome, man. Fun talking with you guys.
Yeah. Thanks for having us on.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate it.